pivot to the Baltimore Ravens. There was a report from the Boston Globe over the weekend that the Ravens and quarterback Lamar Jackson have begun contract negotiations, and the two sides are far apart. I'm told they haven't started talking, and one of the reasons they haven't started talking, we don't know who the side is for Lamar Jackson. He's never had an agent. Is he going to handle this himself? His mother's been his business manager. Is she going to handle it? Is there someone else that's going to get involved? Until they know exactly who they're going to be dealing with, they haven't begun talking to Lamar Jackson. Hey, Lamar Jackson, MVP in 2019. Great player, but especially after what happened just over the past few weeks with Jared Goff and Carson Wentz, guys who got big market value contracts after 3 seasons in the NFL.
Yeah.
I'm willing to give it another year if I'm Baltimore. And I know it's going to make it more expensive next year than it would be this year. But I don't want to be the next one where people like you and me are saying,
right,
you guys should have waited. You guys should have waited.
I hear you.
Have broken the bank for Lamar Jackson until you had a better sense that this was something that was going to be sustainable, because it wasn't sustainable for Goff and Wentz. Is it going to be sustainable for guys like Jackson? Baker Mayfield falls into that category too. I think the Browns should wait and just make sure that they are sold on what they have before they sign a contract that is going to be a major pain in the butt to deal with.
I hear you with all those points. I do, and I think they're real. I guess where I'd push back just a little is I would go, I do think Lamar Jackson is more special than Wentz or Jared Goff. All right, that would be just the first thing I say. You know, he's a special talent, and now he does it a different way, and we know all that. But here's the other aspect, I think, where, you know, Lamar has a little bit more power than maybe even those guys did. And because, yeah, they got to be a little careful, again, because of the way he plays. It only takes one hit or one, you know, wrong run and everything like that, and everything can change. So they definitely, you know, that's going to be a topic they have to discuss. But the other thing where Lamar has a little power in my mind is, man, they've gone all in on the Lamar Jackson offense, right? So if you abandon ship on Lamar, you know, now or next year, it's going to be a year or two before you're going to be able to kind of reorchestrate your team and your offense again for the next quarterback. And that's where I think Lamar has a little power in this situation, because they've done everything with the tight ends and the running backs and the offensive line. They pushed it in the middle of the table and said, we're going to play a certain style of football. It's different than the rest of football. Nobody else is going to do what we do because we have this guy. And that, to me, is where he's got them by the kahunas a little bit as well.
Well, and look, they still also would have to find another quarterback if they decide to move on from Lamar Jackson.
That
so
too.
That's a bigger challenge in retooling the team around him.
Yes.
But and here's the temptation if you're the Ravens. If you end up negotiating with a guy who's not represented by an experienced and skilled agent, there are plenty of ways where the devil on your left shoulder will be tempting you to try to take advantage of the situation because the guy you're negotiating with doesn't understand all of the nuances, the little things,
right,
the traps in the contractual language. How far do you want to go in helping him out to be a good partner? How far do you want to go in sticking it to him because you can? I think back to the first contract that Russell Okung negotiated for himself with the Broncos. It was horrendous. The Richard Sherman contract, and I know that he would beg to differ and he would differ loudly. It was not a good contract for him. It should have paid him a hell of a lot more when he was performing at a high level under it, and it wasn't. Hey, the NFLPA had to get involved and say to the 49ers, can we move a few things around here? That doesn't happen typically. So when you represent yourself, there is a real temptation for the team to take advantage of the situation. Would the Ravens, if I'm the Ravens, I don't want to get to a point where 2, 3, 4 years from now, Lamar Jackson does hire an agent and the agent explains to Lamar Jackson all the ways his team screwed him.
Yeah, I hear you. And, we'll see. It's going to be an interesting contract to how they figure this out, because they do have to protect themselves, certainly. You know, at some point, Lamar Jackson is not going to be able to run to the capacity we've seen him run, you know, these last few years, which is just absolute lightning in a bottle. Michael Vick, we've never seen anything like this. You know, it's the greatest running quarterback in the history of football. That discussion's ended. It's over. But you know, there is a time here where, you know, they're not going to be able to ride that horse as far as that type of style of play with him and everything, and he's going to have to grow as a passer. And we've seen that. He is growing. There's no doubt about it. And I think the next step, too, just along that, just getting back to their team a little bit is, the receiver play. And what can they do? An offensive passing game. Can they expand that a little bit? We talk a lot during the year, that just it can be a little predictable. And it doesn't lend itself to a lot of easy throws and things like that for Lamar Jackson either. So he's got to grow. I think they got to help him grow a little bit more with more ideas in the pass game and things like that. And, hey, I like their tight ends. We know that. Hollywood Brown did show up a little bit last year, finally. But I still think they need another guy out there to help him out and help that aspect of his game and their offense grow altogether.
Well, and what did they start doing? They started coming up with creative ways to get the ball in Hollywood Brown's hands other than run down the field and get open.
Yeah.
Right? In the backfield, little flip here. There was. I remember that one play was almost a disaster.
No, but you're right.
Working.
A lot of those plays.
The little flip went awry, but he got it, and off he goes. And
right.
and we need that. More and more teams need to do that. The best offenses come up with ways to get the ball in the hands of their playmakers and not just simply say, go get open. And that's what the Ravens need to do to make it attractive for other receivers to want to come be part of what they have cooking there offensively and defensively. And speaking of defensively, pass rushers available in free agency, Yannick Ngakoue, Matthew Judon, and I guess they could tag Judon again at a 20% raise. I think it's almost $19 million.
I wouldn't do that.
Tag him again.
No way.
Who comes back?
I got to think, Judon, I like him as a player. I don't think I could ever sleep at night if I was a GM and I was paying Matthew Judon $19 million a year. He's a solid player, love him on his team. He's got attitude, he's physical. But to me, he's not a top-tier pass rusher in football by any stretch of the imagination that way. Yannick Ngakoue is the guy I look at. Hey, listen, the one thing that I look at the Baltimore Ravens on the defensive side of the ball, the secondary is awesome. The front seven, of course, is very good. And just the one adjustment you'd like to see there is, hey, they're big and physical. We know that. They need some speed guys on the D-line. They need some disruption guys. And I think that's why they went out and made that trade for Yannick Ngakoue last year. They need some of that. They've been one of the slower front teams in football over the last few years. And that to me is where, if I'm them, I'd favor Yannick Ngakoue over a Matthew Judon.
Yeah, and look, he flashed. He was disappointing all in all last year, and he's going to be one of these guys, I think, that hits the market, and we'll see. It's fascinating this year to try to figure out who's going to make the plunge and pay some of these guys with the cap situation
really
that are out there. How many of these big deals are we going to hear about early in free agency? It's only a couple of weeks away.
Hi, I'm Mike Tirico, and thanks for watching. Make sure to hit subscribe for the latest news and highlights from NBC Sports.